welcome back to Finding Wendy, my journey, my wellness journey, and this is episode 8. Wow, it's going fast. So today I have a very, very special guest, Fred Rutman. Did I say your last name right, Fred?
No, but you came close.
Okay, great.
It's Rutman.
Rutman, okay.
Yes.
I don't know, I guess I pronounced it a Dutch way because of my Dutch heritage. But welcome to my podcast. I'm very excited to have you as you're my very first intermittent fasting podcast guest because I recently started intermittent fasting myself, all thanks to someone we similarly have in common, and that is Jen Stevens, who wrote many books, and you have also written a book. I have to make sure this gets in focus here. And Jen Stevens, who has written many books about intermittent fasting. But let's just jump right into your medical history and your trauma. And can you share with us particularly what happened? So the thing that really stuck out with me, because I was listening, you were on Jen's podcast and you were talking about the fact that you had 35 concussions and you have 2 pacemakers. So, wow, that's quite the journeys. So yeah, enlighten us. What happened? What's going on?
In the summer of 2009, I started what the doctors thought was me passing out randomly, and we later discovered I wasn't passing out. I was actually dying.
God.
I was being clinically dead, and it happened 20 times in that summer. And I guess definition of clinically dead is your heart doesn't beat for 30 seconds or more, and you stop breathing for 30 seconds or more. So I've gone from barely minimalist to just over 30 seconds to the worst we think was about 5 minutes. That's a long time.
Yeah.
To not be breathing. Most times when that happened to me, I fell down and hit my head on whatever was the hardest object in the vicinity, be it a curb, a commercial cement sink, manhole cover, anything like that, car door. So that resulted in a lot of brain damage, a lot of concussions, post-concussion syndrome, and a whole bunch of PTSD and associated.
Yeah. It sounds horrible.
I guess.
Were you living in, just by the way, not everybody knows where the two of us are. I'm in Toronto and Fred's in Toronto. So that's great. And did this happen while you were living in Toronto, or were you living somewhere else at the time? Yeah. And so you were in and out of the hospital many times, and they basically did lots and lots of tests, and you got obviously in touch. You got a cardiologist, and now you were working towards getting all sorts of surgeries and 2 pacemakers.
Well, the 2 pacemakers are the result of a lot of shenanigans. I'll use that for lack of a better word. And I'll also put in a disclaimer. I'm not trying to put the blame on anybody for what's happened to me, because what's happened to me is like a 1 in 5 billion kind of event. It was just a series of happenstance that should never have happened, but it did. And for example, it shouldn't have taken them 4 months to diagnose what was happening to me.
It's
part of that.
It's very, very difficult to diagnose anything if they. I had a similar experience where I had a pulmonary embolism before I did this whole weight loss journey. I had bariatric surgery 6 years ago, and before that I weighed over 450 pounds. And I had pulmonary embolism, but to this day they don't know if it was actually, what do you call it? Something to do with the heart as well. So either pulmonary embolism, or there's a way to explain it. I can't remember the word anymore. The moment I turned 65, all sorts of words disappear out of my head all of a sudden. But anyway, get back into you. I digress. Sorry, it's not about me. It's about you. So you, they finally were able to get to a diagnosis. So from there, how did you start getting into intermittent fasting?
Well, it took a while. Let's go back to the pacemakers for a bit.
Sure.
So the first pacemaker they put in was in 2009. And it took them so long to diagnose me because they weren't looking for anything beyond me having a heart attack. So there was a whole bunch of cognitive bias on the doctor's parts.
Right.
And you keep testing for the same thing that's not there, you're going to get the same results. So they eventually tried a different test and they found out I had a certain heart condition that could be accommodated by a pacemaker, and they slapped in the pacemaker. In 2013, it was like my Groundhog Day. Everything started happening all over again. I started collapsing and hitting my head and everything. And it took them quite a while to figure out what was happening. And the pacemaker was defective. So they had to replace it. And I went in for the surgery and it didn't go so well. It was a failure. And in fact, I coded on the table.
Oh my God.
So then I was in the hospital for another probably 8 or 10 days because they had to make sure I didn't get an infection from that first surgery.
Right.
And then they also had a terrible time getting in the new pacemaker. So it wasn't a perfect fit, and it caused the pacemaker to drain the battery prematurely. These things should last, for my condition, 10 to 15 years. And we barely got 5 out of it. So in 2018, this happened over again. So, more concussions, more clinically dead, more brain damage, etc. And they tried to put in a new pacemaker. They couldn't get it in because veins had collapsed. So your pacemaker runs with little leads that go to your heart. And I had so many of those in there and the vein collapsed, they couldn't put any more pacemaker leads in. And they had to put in a second pacemaker to back up the first one that was still failing.
Yeah. Yeah. And then, so going back then to the fact that your cardiologist recommended the intermittent fasting program for you, in what way, why did he recommend this?
Well, at the time, there were a number of the cardiologists in my primary hospital that had all been to Jason Fung's. I don't know if you have a Jason. Yes, you do.
Yes.
You have the Obesity Code.
Up here, right here, the Obesity Code. Dr. Jason
Also,
Fung, based here in Toronto.
And they were all impressed with the results he was getting for his patients. So they started promoting it in the cardiac ward. So
that's actually really, really good news, because it's the hardest thing about the whole medical system is many doctors, specialists, I'm finding, don't really have extensive training in nutrition. And that I think it's a huge breakthrough with the work that Dr. Jason Fung did with, and with this book that many of us have now read, the Obesity Code and the Diabetics Code, that that nutrition is such a very, very important part of your overall. It's not necessarily just about weight loss, but also it improves your health of your heart. So in the case of intermittent fasting, what was the benefits for having and starting intermittent fasting?
Well, when I started, which was the summer of 2018, it was still mostly all about weight loss. That was the big goal behind weight loss. So nobody was really focusing on the health benefits that go along with it.
Right.
And what I learned through being a moderator in Jin's group is there are hundreds of health benefits.
Yes.
So just for me, I was type 2 diabetes. I was on a significant amount of insulin every day. And within 6 months, my sugar numbers were back to normal and I was off insulin.
Wow. That's great. So they were treating you with insulin for type 2 diabetes.
Yes.
Yeah. Because what he also talks about in this book is that he gets to the point, it gets to the point with many type 2 diabetes patients where it's, you know, because you're insulin resistant, you don't give the patient more insulin. You change their dietary, the diet, and in this case, you get them involved with intermittent fasting. And so you've been on it since 2018, which is great, And which kind of intermittent fasting do you do? So there are different formulas. There's you fast for 12 hours. You have a 6-hour eating window. What is your fasting method?
It varies by day and what's going on in my life. So that's one of the amazing things about intermittent fasting
Yes.
is you can structure it how it works for you.
Right.
And you don't have to be perfect every day, and you don't have to have that diet mindset. So when they initially gave me the okay to start fasting, because I had, I think, 6 doctors deciding whether I could actually try this because my medical condition was so wacko.
Yeah.
I started on 12-12.
12-12. And so just for everybody who's listening who doesn't know anything about intermittent fasting, what does 12-12 mean?
It means I have a 12-hour eating window and a 12-hour fasting window. So when you talk about a eating window, it doesn't mean you're supposed to eat for 12 hours consistently or consecutively. It means you can eat during that 12-hour period, and then you give your body and digestive tract a 12-hour break during your fast.
Right.
So
and in that 12 hours, do you follow the 12-hour eating window? Do you follow a low carbohydrate or any kind of special sort of food choices that you use?
I don't have a particular diet because we're trying to get people out of the diet mindset.
Yes.
You know, people will eventually find an eating pattern that works best for them. Some people will go more whole foods. Some people will go more meat heavy or poultry heavy or fish heavy. So as you'll find out when you talk to Jen, we're all an experiment of one, and we all work slightly differently, even though we all work the same.
Yep.
So, and your gut biome will change drastically over your first year. And your gut biome is basically what drives a lot of your cravings. So once it gets accustomed to eating better quality foods, it will guide you to eating better quality foods.
Yeah. Whole foods, not processed foods, but from what I've been reading from Jen's book is that, you know, the actual name of the book, delay, don't deny, that you have days where you're going to fast, but you also have days that you're going to feast. So for example, at Christmas, you know, your mindset is you're going to just eat everything. You're just going to, and it's not wrong and it's not terrible, and you just sort of set yourself up for, if you're going to have chips, chocolate, cake, eggnog, whatever, you have it. And then you experience it. Now, the other thing that I wanted to talk about with types of food, or I myself don't drink alcohol. Do you drink any alcohol at all?
Not really, no.
No, because apparently that really does put a kicker in your fasting, into the fasting sort of. It takes longer for your body to recover if you drink alcohol during your 12-hour or 6-hour window than normal. So with your diabetes management now, so you said you no longer are using insulin?
No longer using insulin.
That's great. And how long did that take approximately when you started fasting, and then gradually, I guess you were meeting up with a diabetes specialist, and you were tracking everything and doing regular blood tests. And at what point did you stop using insulin?
About 6 months.
6 months. Okay. That's great. It's great news. It's great news. It's incredible. This whole world for me is just so, like, as you can see, I bought pretty much every book there is about intermittent fasting. And it makes total sense to me because it's just like every time somebody explains it, and it's like, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I have days where I don't eat many out of 7 days, I don't actually eat breakfast. I don't really eat until like 12 or 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So if you have a window where you're just going to eat lunch and eat dinner, that's your 6 hour window, and then you can fast the rest of the time. So now I'd like to hear what you eat or don't eat or drink during your fasting period.
Well, during the fasting period, pretty much water.
Yeah.
That's it. Either tap water or like a soda stream kind of
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
I almost never drink anything. If I've had a day where I've been outside and it's been very hot and I've done a lot of exercise and sweating, I might do a Gatorade. But again, that's in my eating window. Otherwise, that's it.
Yeah.
For regular meals, I don't really constrain myself. What has really changed for me is the volume of food that I eat has gone down remarkably. And because I eat a lot less processed food or ultra processed food, all your other hormones rebalance. And now when I'm satiated, if I've eaten enough that my body is happy by volume, I get a little. Everybody's got these little quirky things that they do. Some people sigh, some people have an extended yawn. That's my little signal that I've actually eaten enough and it's time to recognize that that portion was good for me.
That is very cool because it's as I mentioned, I had bariatric surgery, so I have 80% of my stomach has been taken out, so I know when I'm full. It's I don't have very much room in my stomach, and then there are also a lot of people that have had the Roux-en-Y, and that's a whole different kettle of fish. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, if you're thinking about doing intermittent fasting, you must see your health practitioner before you even decide to do it, especially anybody who's had Roux-en-Y, because Roux-en-Y, you can't eat big meals. You have to like graze the entire time in order to get in the right amount of protein and everything. So speaking of protein and nutrients, do you track your food at all? Do you know how much protein you've eaten during the day?
And I know how much protein you're supposed to get for, every pound or kilo of body weight is, the hot new topic. They talk about it's all a laboratory construct,
Okay.
but very rarely do you ever come across an obituary, saying somebody died from a protein deficiency.
Yes, it's true. It's true.
You know,
And so, the interesting thing, so for yourself, it wasn't about weight loss, but it was about heart health. So because of this intermittent fasting that you're doing now, how has that affected your heart health and affected your pacemakers and all that sort of thing?
well, initially it was about the weight loss, but
Okay.
as I said, the doctors really didn't know. There wasn't a lot of science behind all the parallel weight health benefits that were going on with intermittent fasting. So doctors, being like most of us, they say shiny object, weight loss, easy fix, recommended to the patients. They really didn't know all these other great things were going to happen. So for my condition, there is no recovering from it. The nerve bundles in my heart died, and all the intermittent fasting in the world wasn't going to make them come back to life.
No.
So, so the intermittent fasting does come into play is it helps get down your basal insulin levels. And we have a pool of insulin. Your body produces insulin 24/7. And, when you eat something or smell something delicious,
Yeah.
it increases that. If your pool gets overfilled, it has negative consequences on the body and it hardens your arteries. So
Right.
that will cause your blood pressures to go up because your arteries can't expand and contract like they used to before you had all that excess. So one of the things intermittent fasting does very quickly is it lowers your basal insulin levels. And once your insulin levels start to normalize, most of your other hormones start to normalize along with it. And just a cascading effect of health blessings.
Yeah, yeah.
Really what it is.
It's incredible that how many health benefits there are to basic weight loss, but now taking the next step for me with this intermittent fasting, because it's just calories and calories in and calories out. The amount of research that I've been doing now is basically generated by the big food companies. They don't make any money. They don't make any money if everybody stops eating. And the old wives' tale about breakfast is the most important meal of the day, that was created by the cereal companies. You don't need to eat breakfast. Breakfast means break fast. And so I wanted to talk just quickly, because I'm having issues with this myself, is sleeping. So I'm waking up now 2-3 times a night. I used to wake up maybe once or twice, but now, like when I first started, I woke up 6 times in one night. And I know that sleeping is really, really important as a reset during your fasting as well. So can you talk a little bit about your sleeping habits, but also the benefits of sleeping to your health?
So when people start off fasting and your body's going through all these changes, trying to reset your metabolism, most of the weight you lose in the first 2, 3, 4 weeks is water weight. And that can cause you to have a lot of sleep interruption. And then when your body moves on to getting you into ketosis, which is burning your fats instead of burning the sugars in your blood and your glycogen, your brain isn't used to this. It gets supercharged. And it's really hard for a lot of people
To fall asleep, to sleep or stay asleep.
Yeah, because you're
I
so
feel
jacked.
I'm jacked up. I feel totally jacked up the entire time. I have so much energy. Like right now, I'm fasting right now, and I have been fasting. I have it on my phone here. I downloaded the fasting app, Zero. Sorry.
See?
Weekly Dose podcast.
There's all of a sudden some music playing on my phone, and I don't know why.
People are expecting about fasting.
Yeah. So I've been fasting now for 14 hours. Jesus, that's a sec. I have all sort of music playing on my phone, and I don't want it to play. Started playing Bread. You know the group Bread. I love Bread. Yeah. So I've been
But only
fasting
during
now.
your eating window. You can only enjoy bread during your eating window.
No, this is the band Bread.
I know.
And my dog desperately wants to sit on the balcony. Just one sec. And I'm just going to change the view here so you don't see me going off to let her out. Yeah, so go ahead and tell us a little bit more about sleeping.
Well, I think it's generally recognized that sleep is one of the most important things you can do for your mental health and emotional health, and just allowing your body to recover and repair itself. Most of the repair your body does is when you're sleeping. So, for example, people think that weightlifting, which is really important, strength training is a must for almost all of us, that you get all the benefits from when you're actually lifting the weights and lowering the weights. That's not true. What you're doing is you're slightly damaging your muscles so that while you're sleeping and resting, your body goes into a repair and recovery mode. And that's when all the real work is done. Instead of running parallel, this process runs in serial. No serial jokes, please. And so, but everybody, again, we're an experiment of one. And some people can work perfectly on 6 hours of sleep. Some people need 8 or 10 hours of sleep. So there's no one real number, despite what a lot of doctors say, have to get 8 hours of sleep. That's absolutely not true. So if you wake up and you're refreshed and you're good to go for the next day, you've had the proper amount of sleep.
Yeah.
It might not just be easy to get to sleep when you're just learning and your body's adapting to the
So that explains it, because that basically is driving me nuts, because I thought, okay, I'm gonna try to go to bed earlier and see if that helps. It doesn't help because last night I went to bed at 9 o'clock and it didn't make any difference. I still woke up 3, 4 times, and basically I got up this morning at 6 o'clock in the morning because I couldn't sleep anymore. I'm wide awake. And it's just so that's good to know. So it's just your body is now adjusting to this intermittent fasting journey that is going to be part of my life and is now part of your life the rest of your life. And that's indeed that the word diet is not a part of this intermittent fasting world. It's not a
Not at
diet.
all.
Not at all.
I,
Do you want to elaborate a bit on that?
well, a diet is telling you what you can eat. Intermittent fasting takes us back to our roots before we were very industrialized. And intermittent fasting was the way everybody ate.
Yeah.
You had no guaranteed food sources. So your body developed mechanisms or evolved mechanisms to make sure you could stay alive during those times that were more famine than feast.
Yep.
And it's part of our genetic code.
Yep. Yep. And it's something, well, the hunter-gatherer, going back to the caveman times, you're going out during the day and you're sleeping at night because you don't want to go out at night for fear of not being able to see, a tiger that's going to come and eat you. But you're going to go out hunting during the day, and sometimes you may not get anything. And so you have to wait till the next time and the next time and the next time. So in the meantime, your body is going into a fasting mode and it's burning the fat, not the sugars in your body.
Yep.
And I always use the example of a bear. A bear is eating and eating and eating for months, and then he goes into hibernation. And during hibernation, he is basically burning the fat that's been stored in his body because he got really, really fat. And so your heart and your lungs and your brain and all of that all those things that take energy, the energy is coming from the fat. And that
and not the muscle.
And not the muscle. You don't lose muscle. And that's another thing that is so interesting about this entire topic of intermittent fasting is you're not losing muscle. You're burning fat. You're not losing muscle. You don't lose muscle. You in some cases you actually can gain muscle. And so have you noticed an overall change in your body? And do you go on the scale, for example, at all and check your weight, or is that not a part of your routine?
I do not use the scale at all. I go by the size of my clothes.
Okay.
And that's it. I understand that some people need the numbers. To me, it really doesn't matter what number is on the scale as long as I'm feeling good and I'm able to function. I find it funny. I have a lot of doctor's appointments, and every time I go, they want me to get on the scale and they want to measure my height. So I tell them I don't want to know what the scale says. I don't care. And I've never gone into an appointment with the doctor and he says, "Look at this. You're still 5'7". Way to go on keeping your height."
It's true.
Like,
it's true. Well,
never has a doctor mentioned height.
No. Well, I was at my family doctor yesterday because I needed to get all the blood work. I needed to, get them on board and tell them I'm doing intermittent fasting. And I was talking about the Obesity Code from Dr. Jason Fung, and my doctor knew about this. And that is great. So the word is spreading amongst the healthcare community, the importance, the incredible importance and health benefits of intermittent fasting. So what sort of health improvements do you feel yourself? Like, say, obviously before you were finally diagnosed and you're not fainting anymore, but do you find what is your overall feeling of health at the moment?
I've probably never felt better in my life.
Wow, that's great.
At my heaviest, I was 340 pounds, and every joint in my body ached.
Right.
Now, it's probably a combination of the weight and that I grew up playing hockey course, I'm Canadian. It's the law.
Yay,
I
hockey.
played rugby.
It's
I
the
played
law.
football.
That's hilarious. Well, I
Uh,
played street hockey growing up in Don Mills, and we were on the
mhm.
street, and I loved playing hockey. Car. Any Canadian knows what that means.
So I wasn't thinking clearly. I was actually born, I had a stroke at birth, which didn't get diagnosed until I was an
Wow.
adult. So the left side of my body is slightly paralyzed from that.
Okay.
So there's a lot of things I've had to heal and work on over the years. But I guess getting rid of type 2 diabetes, even my endocrinologist couldn't believe I did that.
Great.
A lot of medical practitioners are just so into their groove that they can't upload new information
No.
like Dr. Fung did. And
Yeah.
it's just outside their mindset. But this is, just another fad diet. It's not.
And do you blame them actually? Because there's another podcaster that I listen to. It's called the Maintenance Phase, and she basically has debunked every single diet for the last 50 years and talking about that on her podcast. And it's just everything from Weight Watchers to Dr. Atkins. I did Dr. Atkins too. I've done every diet on the planet as well, and always had a regain. Always had a regain. And again, there's that dirty word, DIET, 4-letter word. It's a 4-letter word, and it should have nothing to do with anybody and their meal plan or their journey, or not even a journey. It should just be the way you eat. That I lost my train of thought. Oh no. But the benefits
65 hits again.
65 hits again. Isn't it lovely? Isn't it lovely? So the benefits of your diet and lifestyle changes. So the thing that I'm having a really hard time with is artificial sweeteners. So can you talk a little bit about the artificial sweeteners? Do you use them?
I do not knowingly use them. I'm sure there's something I've eaten in the past 4 years that had them, but I will not knowingly eat artificial sweeteners.
And can you explain to our listeners why?
Artificial sweeteners are marketed as anti-sugar, so they're low calorie. If it's low calorie, it must be good for your body, because we all want to cut calories. And they don't talk about the chemical effect that these artificial sweeteners have on your body and metabolism. So when your body senses this sugar,
The sweet taste.
it's not really the sweet taste, but there's no sugar, there's no energy coming in. It starts to pump out more insulin. So
Yep.
at the beginning of our talk, I said all these things would start to circle back on each other. So your body starts producing more insulin, and it can actually cause you to have lower blood sugars because it's trying to take sugars out that shouldn't be taken out at the time. And the level of sweetness that your body senses from these artificial sweeteners is just off the charts. And that also messes with your satiety and hunger. It's not a good system for your body. It's like if you start replacing your blood with molasses, your body's just not going to work.
No.
You're not going to be able to breathe properly.
No, it's
give energy.
Yeah, so it's an artificial product, and that's the thing about intermittent fasting. Because you have a small window to eat, you automatically start choosing healthy, whole foods that will give you a sense of satiety. I always eat my protein first, so that it fills me up, and I know my body needs it. And then I go to the vegetables. Maybe if I have a little bit of room left, I may do, like last night, I had half a sweet potato for dinner together with some kale and some chicken. But the thing about artificial sweeteners is exactly that crazy idea that also discovered for myself, because I always put artificial sweeteners in my coffee in the morning. And while I was reading this book, and they were saying no artificial sweeteners when you're fasting because it spikes your insulin. So the whole point of fasting is to lower your insulin levels so that you start burning. And the interesting thing about this app I'm using, Zero, it actually tells you at one point during your hour fasting when you're actually starting to burn fat. And because there's this like a small window, and then at one point it says now you're burning fat, but that will stop the moment you eat or drink anything that is sweet, fake or real. So fake being an artificial sweetener, stevia, xylitol, any artificial sweetener. Even if you swish it in your mouth and spit it out again, your brain says, oh, there's something sweet. I'm going to tell my pancreas to produce some insulin. Insulin level goes up. You're no longer benefiting from what intermittent fasting does, that it burns your fat. So do you use you don't use artificial sweeteners at all in your eating window?
Correct. I don't use them in my fasting window either.
No, of course not. No, that we established you should not be doing. But because Jen was actually talking about how she does use sugar in her eating window. So she does eat sugar. You eat sugar.
Not a lot.
No.
Yeah.
So do you
but
drink
I'd like
coffee?
you to make a note.
Yeah.
I'm not a coffee drinker. I'd like you to make a note about the fasting app and when it tells you you're getting into ketosis, because Jen will have a lot more to say about that.
Okay, great. I'm a newbie. I'm a rookie. I'm a rookie. So there's probably lots of things that will change over time, and I'm just going by whatever information I can find on Facebook and on the different groups that I've joined and things like that about intermittent fasting. So what is your suggestion for anybody that is interested in trying to do intermittent fasting to not just lose weight, but to improve their health? What sort of other health benefits have you heard or read about that also help if you practice intermittent fasting?
Personally, also reversed my sleep apnea, which the doctor said he's never seen before.
Yeah,
so
that's amazing. Did you use a CPAP machine?
I did use a CPAP for many years.
Yeah.
And I know I almost never snore anymore. I mean, everybody snores occasionally, but it's not an issue for me anymore. And remember, I've been in the hospital probably 30 times for my various adventures. None of the nurses have remarked that I was keeping the other patients in the hospital up.
Well, that's good. Yeah, because you live alone, obviously, or not obviously. Do you live alone? So how can you track something unless you record yourself sleeping? Yeah.
Well, the phones all have apps for your sleep help and everything now.
Yeah.
So, there's also that.
Yeah.
I don't wake up. I wake up in the morning refreshed.
Great. You feel like you've had a really good night's sleep, because I'm still feeling tired, but I'm in the beginning stage. Yeah. And what are some other benefits? What are the other health benefits? You were talking about, I don't have aches and pains anymore.
Yeah, that was probably 2 to 3 months in. I mean, it used to be difficult for me to even get out of bed. And my father had really bad arthritis, probably the worst case of arthritis I've ever seen in my life. And I thought that was my future. And 2-3 months into the fasting, and I was getting into longer fasts then. I was getting into 22-hour fasts. It just went away. All that inflammation in my joints went away. And I don't have an ache or pain in my body, which is for all the damage I've inflicted on myself. I've been hit by cars while I was riding my bike a number of times. It's remarkable that I am so pain-free, and that's due to the intermittent fasting helping you get rid of a lot of the body-wide inflammation. Yeah. And it's just gone.
Yeah. The way Jen explains it, and she calls it garbage, getting rid of your garbage out of your body, and that the intermittent fasting basically does a great cleanup of your system. And the garbage or cleanup can include things like inflammation, and that there's less inflammation. I have lots and lots of aches and pains. I have arthritis, and I'm looking forward to 6 months from now to see the difference before and after of, because I'm going to go see a physiotherapist about this neck pain I'm having. Hopefully that will, with this intermittent fasting, that will be less as well. I've heard some crazy, some interesting things, or not crazy, but interesting things about eyesight.
Yes. So many people have reported. Remember when I was one of Jen's moderators, we had something like 350,000 people in the group. So, the variety and breadth and depth of the questions were mind-blowing. But many people reported that their eyesight was getting better. I had diabetic retinopathy. I had some pretty serious leakage in my left eye from the diabetes, and now it has essentially disappeared. And again, it's another one of those things that the eye surgeon says, we've never seen this before.
It's incredible. That's incredible. And then, so you have less pain, you're sleeping better, you're seeing better. Is there anything else that you can enlighten us with some changes?
No more migraines.
There we
Never get a
go.
migraine.
I've never had a headache in my life, so I don't know. But I have heard, and I have friends who have severe migraines. And so you used to have severe migraines. And was that related to your concussions, or it was just in general? You don't know if it was.
I think for some people, migraines are genetic, hereditary. My mom used to have horrible migraines.
Okay.
I don't think mine were anywhere near as bad as hers.
Yeah.
My friend Glory used to have these horrible migraines, and
Yeah.
she'd get these auras and, couldn't see. So mine were, next level headaches, but those have gone away completely. My asthma's gone away. Most of my allergies have gone away. There's probably a dozen other things that I could list, but
Your asthma has gone away?
yeah.
Yeah, that is quite something too. So you were just mentioning Dr. Jason Fung's book about willpower. Can you repeat that for us?
Sure. I'm paraphrasing here, but Jason says he and I are on a first name basis.
Great. You've met him?
No. All my doctors have, but I haven't. He boils it down to hormones beat willpower 24/7, 365 days a year. So if you're caught in the diet trap and you're beating yourself up because, oh, I failed another diet, or I did so well and then I gained back, everything I lost plus another 10 or 15% or whatever it is, it's not a fair fight. You can't beat your hormones. Your hormones are working in your body as part of your genetic structure. And until you get your hormones adjusted, you're generally going to be in a losing battle. And what you'll also go ahead.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead. And
you'll also find, as many people have, once they've been intermittent fasting and they've flipped that metabolic switch and your brain's running on ketones, you will have a renewed sense of calm and confidence, and a lot of that negative talk will go away. I've experienced it. Dozens and dozens and dozens of people in the group have experienced it. And you can just see by talking to them, they're just different people. And
interesting.
I'll use my friend Susie Stone in Los Angeles. I finally got her to try intermittent fasting, and it gave her the confidence to apply for jobs she didn't think she could get. And now she's been with an insurance company for a number of years, doing really well, and she attributes it to intermittent fasting.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, if you're the type of person, like you mentioned before, of you just dive right in and do it, Or you're I got to talk to my medical practitioner and should I really be doing this? And let me do some more research about it. I'm the dive right in kind of person because after I read Jason Fung's book, I did the 24-hour fast that he suggests. So it's 24 hours of fasting and then you can eat 3 meals. You don't have to start that stringent. I started really stringent, and then, but indeed that you have the different types of intermittent fasting, where you can just do 16 hours of fasting or even 10 hours of fasting. But just start with the idea of trying to build up more hours in your intermittent fasting does more repair to your body.
Absolutely. And as a general rule, probably 16 hours is the minimum to get significant results or things that you will notice.
Yeah.
But of course, any fasting is good fasting.
Yeah, it's going to happen. Well, that's great. That's great. So there's a huge list. And again, going back to why this seems to be a big, deep, dark secret. At least this is the first time I have no idea how I came across the Obesity Code from Dr. Jason Fung. But when I read it, I have dyslexia. So I listen to Audible and I look at the words at the same time. And when I was reading this book, it was like one of those, my brain was exploding over and over and over again. Like, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't I know about this? And even within the bariatric community, because there's someone that I recently met, Allison, who has started up a Facebook group for those who have had bariatric surgery and are practicing intermittent fasting. So it's still small, the group, only about 800 members. There should be 800,000 members because so many people in North America have had bariatric surgery and are experiencing weight regain. And they just go back to the calorie in, calorie out thing, or they go to the gym 7 days a week and try to burn it off, whatever, that way. But it's not the reason. It's this insulin resistance that you have, basically too much. The only way that your fat is going to be burned is fasting. And so let's talk a bit about your book. So we see the image of your book in the background there, The Summer I Died 20 Times. And this book,
forward by Jen Stevens.
Yeah, Jen Stevens. Again, we talked about Jen Stevens a couple of times. So Jen Stevens is a New York Times bestseller book writing author. She has a podcast. She also has a Facebook group, and she has an online community that you can join. And just a little bit about your book, and then we'll talk a little bit about Jen, because Jen is coming on my podcast as well. But talk to us about your book and at what point were you fasting when you wrote the book? Did you start intermittent fasting? Yeah.
I started it early after all my head trauma as part of a journaling experiment from my therapist. And the problem with me journaling, what happened to me is I had so much head damage, memory loss and everything. I couldn't remember things to journal.
Okay.
And even when I did remember things, I wasn't sure if what I remembered was accurate. So I had started journaling and kind of gave up on it, but I still had a story that I could tell to people.
Right.
And, when you start off a conversation or a talk to somebody with, "Hi, my name's Fred. I've been dead multiple times." And it kind of gets their attention. So at some point along this voyage, somebody suggested to me that I enter my story in a short story competition. And I've always been a writer. I wrote for the school newspaper. I was a marketer. I was a professor. I know how to write, but writing a book and a story is different than writing marketing copy or a business plan. So I tried to write this short story and I could not get under the maximum word count. I just didn't have the skills and the capacity at that point. So I kept it in the back pocket. And as I fasted and became more healthy mentally and emotionally, I began to pick up steam. And oddly enough, I wrote most of the book during COVID because I was just sitting on the deck looking into the park behind where I lived. And I was pounding out, 1,000, 1,500 words a day. And because really, what else could you do?
So you mentioned for your school, you're a teacher and a professor. Where did you teach, and where
I
were you a
taught at
professor?
all the colleges in Toronto.
What did you teach?
I was business. I taught marketing and finance and communication and strategy. So I have an MBA in marketing and finance. I did a double major because doing one major wasn't tough enough.
Great.
And I also have a certification in adult ed, which is pretty much the equivalent of a master's in adult ed.
Yes, that's wonderful. And so your book is available on Amazon. So the the other thing where you were talking about with Jen Stevens, that you were a moderator, and that you were there were 300,000 people. What was this, online, or what was this?
Yeah, that was the Facebook group. The Facebook group now still exists. Jen's not on it anymore, and we don't moderate it. People just can use it as a resource to look up questions about fasting. She's dedicated to her online community, and it was an amazing thing. And one of the things I didn't notice, and I haven't actually mentioned this to Jen, is when we were moderating, there was, I think, up to 60 of us at some points, and we were all volunteers. Personally, I got so immersed with it that it just reinforced fasting, almost 24/7. And when she decided to shut down the group, it left a big hole in me. Even though you're supporting other people, that's also reinforcing and supporting yourself.
Well, and that's basically the whole point of my podcast, and the whole point of my YouTube channel was that I'm supporting myself. I'm just, it just keeps me going, because exactly during the pandemic, where I experienced a weight regain during the pandemic, I didn't want to broadcast that on YouTube, as many people sort of stop broadcasting, or stop posting videos, or stop using the Facebook group or whatever when they get off track. And then so I started playing my horn, because I'm a professional, or retired professional horn player, and I just had these mini concerts during the pandemic. But at the same time, I was sitting on the couch and stuffing my face with food because there was nothing else to do. And it was really, really tough. And a lot of people that, we call that COVID kilos, a lot of people gained weight during the pandemic. And,
Sure.
and to get back on track, like I see now, this week was the first week of school. All the kids are going back to school. So I see myself as, okay, so I've changed my lifestyle. And it's like going back to school and getting shiny, brand new pencils and new binders. And, that was always fun, and a new agenda and that sort of thing. So we're getting towards the end of our 1 hour discussion. If you were to share any of your experiences, if somebody were to say, all this information is amazing, but where do I start, and how do I do this? And what would be a good place to start if they're just like thinking, maybe I should look into this?
The first thing you should consider, being honest with your own personality. So some people are very risk averse. Some people like to take risks. Some people are, rip off the Band-Aid. And I'm just going to start with a 20-hour fast, and go from there. And some people are, I have to talk to my doctors, which is a good idea most of the time. And, because one of the big challenges for me was I was on so many medications, and they had no idea how that was going to affect my body if I started fasting.
Very complicated.
Jen will probably talk about this more, but it's not recommended for children. It's not recommended for women who are pregnant or breastfeeding, or if you've had an eating disorder. So, those are the precautions. But when you do this deep dive into being honest with yourself and how your diet history has been, and what supports do you have? Then you can say, okay, maybe I should just start with a 16/8, or
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll jump in the pool and
And
start with
again,
a 24-hour
16/8.
fast.
Yes. And again, just to remind people, a 16/8 means 16 hours of fasting and an 8-hour eating window. And that 8-hour eating window can be anything from 10 in the morning till 6 at night. That's your 8-hour
Mhm.
eating window. And then after that, it's fasting.
So I'm probably OMAD now for the most part, which is one meal a day.
OMAD, OMAD, OMAD. Yeah.
OMAD. So yeah, there's lots of fasting lingo. So the and what a meal is will differ between people. So, for me, it's just a regular meal, and maybe I'll have a dessert or a
Yeah.
snack later. That's it. That's it.
And so for reading material, of course, I started with the Obesity Code from Dr. Jason Fung,
If
and that,
you're a very sciencey person, you will love that book.
yeah,
And you have to remember, I think that came out in 2014. So, a lot of the information in that book was sort of very primary.
mm-hmm.
And because it was research from like 2008 to
Yeah,
2014,
yeah,
there's been so many advances in the intermittent fasting world research. For example, Japanese scientists won the Nobel Prize in 2016 for the concept of autophagy, or if you live other places, autophagy.
and what does that
That is
mean?
your body is incredibly smart, and we have lots of proteins floating around in our body. However, sometimes they get mislabeled and misused and not processed. So there's a lot of protein buildup in your cells that keep them from running efficiently. Autophagy is a process that is running 24/7, but at different speeds, and it helps clean out your cells and get rid of all these misplaced proteins to help your body run more efficiently. You won't notice it, but it's measurable. Things you will notice is if you have scars, they will start to disappear. Women in the group mentioned that they had 30-year-old cesarean scars that started to fade.
Wow.
Varicose veins, things like that. I don't know if you can really see it, but I've got a little burn mark on my arm. And every 3 months, it just starts to scab over again and scab over again, and it's gone. I know all the scars I have from my various heart surgeries, and there's been 12 of them. They're not disappeared, but they're fading fast.
Yeah.
And especially if I compare it to others I've seen with the same scarring, I'm way ahead of them.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing that blew my mind when I was reading Jen's book was also about extra skin. So with the extra skin, that if you have a lot of if you're doing intermittent fasting to lose weight, you're going to have extra skin. In the case of bariatric patients, I have a lot of extra skin. But that intermittent fasting helps with the elasticity of your skin as well. But a caveat note, it also is age related, whether or not a woman is going through menopause or not.
Yes, I'm definitely not going through menopause. Definitely a big part of skin
Your humor is
elasticity.
totally dry.
Thank you. A big part of your skin, your cellular rigidity is collagen,
Yes.
which is a protein. So if you've got all those extra proteins in the loose skin, that's one of the things autophagy can work on.
Right. Okay. So there's the autophagy again. That is quite amazing. So, so obviously, the benefits are just phenomenal with intermittent fasting, and that having a support system is very important, and also being able to talk to somebody or having a partner that that also wants to do intermittent fasting, because that's within the bariatric community was a big issue with a lot of people who there's only one person in the family who has had the bariatric surgery, and it was a challenge with discussions around mealtime or can you eat, can you not eat, and there's a lot of pressure there. Do you have any? So your connection to this support system, to this IF. There's a lot of acronyms in the intermittent fasting world. In the IF community, the intermittent fasting community, do you speak to someone or do you reach out to people on a daily basis?
I'm always promoting it to other people. I've helped a lot of people, or intermittent fasting has helped a lot of people. Now I'm at a point where I'm pretty self-sufficient. If I have something that I really don't understand or I can't remember, for example, somebody asked me if it would help their gallstones, and I couldn't remember if we had ever addressed that group. So, I would just ask Jen or Sherry Bullock, who's one of her partners in her new community. So there's a lot of people that I'm still in touch with that were part of the moderating community. If I don't know something, they likely do, or just go to Jen.
It's research, learning that it's again, what you pointed out earlier is that a lot of healthcare providers are not up to date or up to speed on the benefits of intermittent fasting. That it just seems to be, they're busy people. They have to know everything and anything about, I don't know, hip replacement surgery or whatever. But having a specialist like a dietitian, I'm going to see a dietitian shortly, and I'll be interested to see how much they know about intermittent fasting. And I hope not. I'm hoping they do know more, because otherwise it's like, okay, it's up to us again to figure it out. Kind of like, the film Lorenzo's Oil with Susan Sarandon. Did you ever see that film? Well,
no, I'm terrible with films.
Okay, it doesn't matter. So her son was diagnosed with a horrendous disease, and Susan Sarandon's character and her husband did everything and anything to research a cure and look for a cure, and they found one because their healthcare providers could not provide the information. So you are your best healthcare manager, basically. If you can't get an answer from your healthcare provider, you need to do the research. If you don't do the research yourself, you're never going to find it. And that's what I've been finding over and over again with this, with life in general. We're very fortunate here in Canada that that our healthcare system is paid for. It's free, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's a be all and end all, because you still are sometimes forced, or you're face to face with a health practitioner that knows nothing about the topic you're talking about. And you're like, well, what's the point? So my famous saying is, ask questions over and over again until there are no more questions to be answered. You're out of questions because you found your answer.
Our medical system in Canada is a blessing and a curse. One of my doctors tore ligaments in their knee, and they don't get a bump up in the queue any more than we do.
No.
He's been waiting, 6 months to see an orthopedic surgeon.
Yeah.
And so there's these long wait lists. But on my own podcast, which I hadn't mentioned.
Oh, yes. Mention your podcast as well. Sorry. Go ahead.
Thank you. It's called the Dead Man Walking Podcast. There's sort of this dead theme that runs through stuff that I do. And I just had Sohail Gandhi on. He's the past president of the Ontario Medical Association. And he's, got some pointed things to say about the bureaucrats that have taken over the medical system.
Right.
And even just, that we are so short of doctors that we could just pay and get rid of the bureaucrats, and the system would run so much better, and there'd be much shorter wait lists and shortages of everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's not the perfect soup, and it's basically politically driven, which is unfortunate. And I don't want to get into that discussion because I am not a fan of the present provincial government, but many people aren't, and some people are. Whatever. But this has been an incredible interview, and you're the kickoff to my whole new IF journey and the IF journey for friends and family and who's ever listening. And you and I are spreading the word. You and I are spreading the benefits of and educating people. I'm an educator. I'm a teacher. I also love to share my experiences and find other people out there that have knowledge and experience like you have yourself. And that I will be obviously putting all the links in of your podcast and the links to your book and the links to Jen's book and Jen's podcast. And I think it's been wonderful that you've been here today, and for sure, come back. I'd love to have you back on the podcast channel, and we can talk maybe 6 months from now, and I'll tell you how I'm doing, and you tell me how you're doing. It's just meant to be, it's a community, and it takes a village, as I always say. It takes a village, right? So if we're all trying to get healthier, because living in North America is sure a heck of a challenge. You turn on the TV and every 5 minutes there's a commercial about this junk food and that junk food, and you are just inundated with the fact that you need to be eating all day long.
Yeah. And then there's a commercial for the medication to counteract all the foods.
Well, the thing that was the most shocking for me when I was watching the Olympics, and I mentioned this in another podcast as well, is that I was watching the Olympics on CBC, and every 15 minutes there was an Ozempic commercial. And it was like, okay, here you are watching all of these really fit, beautiful, athletic bodies, and you're on the couch eating your chips or your chocolate or whatever you do on the couch when you're watching the Olympics. And then there's this Ozempic commercial. And that to me was fat shaming, because the Ozempic commercial was not targeted to those who have diabetes. It was targeted to those that are trying to lose weight. And again, we're with the marketing machine, the multi-trillion-dollar marketing machines are constantly telling you that you need to try this diet or that diet. And the pharmaceutical companies, the multi-trillion-dollar pharmaceutical companies, are trying to sell you Ozempic or Wegovy. And it's not about artificial this or that. It's about what you eat and when you eat, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
and just let your body heal.
Let your body heal. Exactly. It's broken. Put a Band-Aid on it and fix it. And the Band-Aid in this case is IF, intermittent fasting. Well, Fred, it's been wonderful speaking to you today. And thank you so much. For everybody listening, thank you so much. And we hope to see you again at another podcast, and keep on following. And don't forget to subscribe to my podcast, because there are lots of really exciting guests coming. Jen Stephen is coming, and also Allison, I forget her last name, Allison, who is doing intermittent fasting, and she's had bariatric surgery. So they're going to be back. They're going to be on the podcast soon. So thanks for listening.